Hello, creators. I hope you are enjoying this lovely Monday. I am excited to be back again this week after the dreaded cold of last week, um, keeping me down, keeping me in bed, stupid cold, but feeling better now. Excited to be back with you, brainstorming and hanging out. My name is Emily Craven. I am a producer, editor, publisher. I run an organization called Story City. We do interactive storytelling that will only open in the right location. So we have a platform that allows anybody to make and sell stories that are meant to be experienced in the location where you're standing and take you on an adventure through the city that you're exploring. So they might be real life choose your own adventures like what we do on our adventure hour every week on Thursdays and Fridays. They might be puzzle trails where you solve clues to uncover a mystery. They might be interactive music pieces. They might be behind the scenes film tours. The idea behind Story City is that it's a no code platform that allows anybody to be able to make these kinds of stories. And we wanted to make it simple and easy. To give you an idea, kind of, I suppose, of where my background is, I come from a publishing background, as in book publishing, right? So I had never been a active video gamer when I was younger. My parents wouldn't get us a console. We could only use our computer for, like uh, tests and assignments and things like that. But I could always read a book, so I was very much into the book publishing scene. I did a lot of stuff around uh, independent publishing and ebook publishing. And so that's kind of where my background came from. So I have novels online if anyone ever wanted to look them up. Comedies set in Facebook where you're reading, the characters' Facebook pages and their comments and Facebook notes to being part of an organization called the Institute of the Future of the Book, where we ran a lot of experiments in writing, publishing, and storytelling. And now I get to do interactive stories for a living. And so I get to work with games writers, entrepreneurs, theatre playwrights, um, and tourism guides. So it's a lot of fun. The idea behind these creator labs is that um, if you are coming in and you are a storyteller that's stuck or just wants to throw their ideas around to see if something works, you're more than welcome to come here, request to come on stage, and let's brainstorm some story ideas. Um, in the meantime, while we wait to see if anyone turns up and wants to brainstorm a story, uh, I'm happy to kind of, I suppose, live edit or take you through the thought process of a story that I'm working on at the moment. So let me take you on a journey to uh, Adelaide originally was where this story was created. So as I said, uh, Story City is a platform um, where we build, interactive stories, including choose your own adventures. And so one of the very first stories I ever made, when I was kind of testing this idea, we did it like by zip tying QR codes to poles. Any of you who've seen our previous, videos on demand have probably heard this story before. But we created several stories. One was a spy story. One was a kind of creepy horror where all the facades of the city were coming to life. And then there was my story, which, if any of you have ever read any of my novels, um, is is a spoof alien invasion. The city that I wrote it for was Adelaide, which is in South Australia. Um, in the bottom middle of Australia, for those of you who don't know Australian geography. And they have an open air mall, which has a piece of public artwork in it called the Mall's Balls, which is two giant silver balls stacked on top of each other. And the stupid premise of the story was that aliens were planning to invade Earth, and they heard that you needed balls to do it. So they've come to Adelaide demanding that Adelaide give them their balls. And so I built out this kind of branching choose your own adventure where you could uh, decide to uh, help or save the city in various ways. And what I am doing now is I'm like, okay, this is great that we have this story here, and um, it's it's still kind of relevant to Adelaide. So in previous weeks, when we were doing the stream, we kind of determined that all of the bits and pieces still existed in the location. We did a gander around Google Street View to be like, oh, are there still payphones in this street? Does this fountain still exist? Which surprisingly, it did not still exist. And there was a different fountain in a different place. Um, Australia has a lot of droughts. They're very funny about their fountains these days. Um, and uh, and so um, now what I wanted to do is I was like, okay, it still works in Australia. We can, record some narration, maybe get some artwork together, and release it back into the wild in Adelaide, which was, exciting to be able to put the original story out there that kind of started the whole Story City platform. But the other thing that I wanted to do was adapt it so that I could place it in any city. And so on previous weeks, I have worked on different worked on different screens. And oh, interesting, interesting. I must have changed the screen that I pointed this towards. Let's see, video capture device. Let us change you back to a different page. If I was a video capture device, properties, figuring out how we get, oh, the display capture is the one I want. Which display? No, we don't want our primary monitor. We want this one. There we go. Apologies for the technical difficulties, everyone. So I wanted to try and make it a more generic story so that it could be potentially placed in any city. So we've been doing this, slowly, week by week, um, and uh, every couple of weeks or so, we'll get a new creator jump in and want to do a story, and so we'll put this on pause. So what I kind of did in previous weeks was that I went through and edited this to be a little bit more generic, right? How do we make it so that uh, the story can be placed in any city? Is it necessarily Adelaide specific? And to be able to go from there. Um, so the last time we kind of looked at this and said, okay, uh, you've decided to, find a payphone because your cell phone has stopped working. Um, and so you will jog across, XYZ place to be able to find that payphone. Um, the um, uh, problem uh, here is how do you give directions to something when it could be in any city, right? So, okay, say you want to direct people to two different payphones. How do you kind of know which payphone that's going to be? And so the conversation last time around was like, oh, most cities are kind of orientated north to south, aren't they? No, no, they're not. So it says Google Street View. So we were trying to figure out the best way to do these directions um, for that. The other thing that we were kind of talking about was that what if we didn't make it a payphone? What if we just had them storm into some kind of location and try to use that phone? Um, so, do we head the into a local retail store, and try to use their landline, or do we perhaps maybe dive into bank or something like that, right? So like what were these other types of locations that we could maybe that were generic enough for a city that we could maybe like duck into them and somehow be in the vicinity of a phone that would then have someone calling that area, and then we could continue on our adventure. Um, so this time around, I was like, okay, let's just do the payphone side of things, and then maybe we can figure out a more generic um, thing. The idea is that we're essentially leading them to um, a, a square or a central area in the city, whether it's a park or whatever that might be, um, to do this. A town, a square outside a town hall, or something of that nature, right? Particularly somewhere that is most likely to have some sort of big fountain there. Um, all right, so let's see what we've done here in terms of the edit so far. So we've placed it over the city square. So we're kind of heading in that direction towards the city square. Um, Trying to use different cities as as a, a place mark. So let's maybe just open maps and see if this can help us generate some ideas for how we can make this a little bit more generic. So here in Edmonton, we have our city hall. Right here, this is the city square right there. If we are in Calgary, for example, we go into downtown Calgary, lots of central plazas around here. So there's the Courthouse Park, there's Harmony Park, City Centre, Olympic Plaza is probably the better one there because that's got Town Hall by one side. So that's probably going to be the equivalent in Calgary. What if we opened, I don't know, Vancouver? Let's have a look here. Downtown Vancouver. Gastown, Steam Clock, Fireworks. I wonder where the City Hall is there. Let's have a look here. Oh, goodness. Apparently we're just going to zoom all the way out, hey? So the City Hall there. I don't necessarily know if I'd call that a central plaza. I'm looking for a more kind of central area where a spaceship may huddle, um, but there would be enough things in and around that area to um, do some interesting things. Livingstone Park, Basic Place, Community Rec Centre. I suppose in the interest of making things fairly easy, we'd probably try to stick to the City Hall kind of area, potentially. Are those City Halls not far from the water? Oh, or the Olympic Village. So might be nice to actually make your way from City Hall down, or from Olympic Village down to here. So in Adelaide, you're essentially starting off in a mall related area. And then you are heading down a main street towards a central area. So it might be better to be in downtown Vancouver and then head to a central area around there. So maybe that's what we do. We start off down in Grenville Street, maybe near the art gallery potentially, um, and then make our way past, the library and down to the water where BC Place is. That's probably our best bet. All right. So we'd be making our way that way if we were Vancouver, Calgary, heading out to Olympic Plaza. City Hall is, which means that we would probably start on Stephen Avenue at one end, making our way that way. Whereas in Edmonton, you would be heading towards the city centre there. And so maybe start it at. You could either start at the city centre or you can maybe start at just bad and you go to the city centre, maybe even the legislature building. I'd probably actually start at the city centre and move towards the legislature building. Okay, so okay. So I think that even if you could find payphones on the streets in most cities, um, it might be tough to, know how close someone is. So rather than us have payphones, let's go for more generic locations that you could potentially need. So maybe rather than a payphone, um, all right. Do you let's just go with a retail store. That way, it can be any shop in the city centre. Easy peasy. So rather than a retail store, what else would be probably common in that city area? Um, you want to hand the responsibility onto someone else. So you're kind of looking for something where someone official might be around, right? So Don't necessarily want a police station. They're not frequent, as it were. Um, you um, want someone potentially in authority. Um, Banks are fairly frequent. Um, Here we go. Security guards, receptionists. They have official jobs. They can deal with it. Let's do that. All right. Okay. Retail store. And then security receptionist. All right. Yeah. All right. All right. So rather than approaching the payphone and having it ring, we're going to enter a store. We're expecting to be quizzed, but the store is deserted. Um, and then we kind of build it out that way, so that way at least we can get it into most cities um, that uh, we would um, we would be putting this in, right? Just realized that you couldn't really see the text that well, so there we go. We're moving that over. Okay. So rather than the Advertiser, which is an Adelaide-based newspaper, um, from the Nightly News. All right. So that way, it can be any sort of news crew in the city. Probably easier to do it as television, because there's no way to easily refer to the local newspaper in a way that I think would fit with like local slang for newspapers, or the local rag versus the national newspaper, versus maybe it's a monopoly and it's no longer the local paper. So better off to be the nightly news crew. That way, at least, you know, you you know, perception is that you should at least have some sort of local news in your area. Um, so you need to let the Air Force. ASIO is like Australia's version of the CIA. So maybe we need something more generic. You need to let the Air Force call in. Um, um, Call it maybe the feds. Do Americans and Canadians call them the feds? The federal government? Let's uh, let's leave that there as the feds. I'll have to check in if any of you out there are based in the US and know whether or not you would refer to them as the feds, or um, I know in Canada, I don't know whether they call them the feds. I wonder if they would just call them the RCMP. So any Canadians or US people out there, let me know what you think that terminology would be. Pull innocence from line of fire. Um, and so the Fringe is an event that happens in Adelaide, but doesn't happen in every city. Um, so um, let's pick another type of event. Sporting. Um, I feel like someone in the arts would be like, "Oh yes, the sports. We cover the sports." Um, but then I can also imagine like a very super serious like sports journalist being like, "No, the sports are integral. Like this is important work. We can't get away from the sports reporting." So uh, maybe hopefully hitting two audiences there with the references. Okay. So originally, um, it was when Queen Elizabeth was alive. So they've got the Queen. Um, uh, that potentially that will not fly in the US, probably. That would fly in Canada, or except it would be the king now. Um, so maybe uh, the king for any Commonwealth countries, and then we have a non-Commonwealth version, which is the president for the US, um, and maybe replace it with whichever dignitary it is. Um, Probably get so it would be knighted if you were the king, Medal of Honor if it was the president potentially. Um, so let's at the very least do it for the Commonwealth countries, and then we can do it for US and other non-Commonwealth countries after that. But we do have a king now. We'll have a king for a while, actually. If the monarchy continues to exist as it does in this current day and age, you never know in the future. Um, and maybe less boy, because it could be a girl stepping into this. Just to go child for more gender neutral. Um, you want me to rescue him? Yeah. Oh, lots of pronouns to change. Yes. Mhm. Let's just say the palace. Uh, Finger was at a very is a very Australian um, term. So if you were trying to adapt this for a North American audience, if you're trying to be vague about the person you were talking to. Again, this is a comedy. This is not meant to be believable in the slightest. Um, you'd be perfect for the story. We've been following you for a while now. You citizen journalist, maybe just buddy. Uh, we called it the city square, didn't we? And the clear skies in the other direction. Now the question is, so this original location was clearly by a piece of street art, but I wonder how. Um, how frequent street art is in different cities, right? Some cities there's a lot of street art, other cities there is not. Um, might be better to have some sort of ad, like a bus stop advertising or public transport advertising poster. Um, we got to put them back outside. Jumble of bright colours that makes up maybe advertisement. Because the advertisement could be on anything. Could be on a bus, could be on a bus stop, could be in a window of a shop. Um, for your eyes. The just gonna say jumble of the colours bleed together and peel off the wall. Leaving in your eyes attempt to deceive you. An alien. All right. Now, you can just head down the street for the moment because we don't know where our next locations are going to be. Swiveling, how do we spell that? 1L, perfect. Okay. The name of the nightly news. And the Q. Add a. You guys don't say rubbish bin here, you say trash can. Yes, let's go with that. Trash can. Or 2, stand still, really slightly. Instead, get swept down the street by your fellow suicidal citizens. Towards the square to check out the action. Towards the spaceship, let's say. So the idea essentially is that the city square should have a bunch of locations, so like statues and buildings around the city square that you can kind of lean on to do different things, right? So of Calgary, um, we have our Olympic Plaza, which no doubt has um, bits and pieces. It's interesting that so there's like an arts commons here. There's also one in Edmonton, so it's the Arts Gallery of Alberta, which is right next to the city square in Edmonton. Um, Here, if we're at the city centre, yeah, so there's like an arts area outside the city centre as well. Oh, that's a bunch of fun. Look at that. So nice. Look at it. Look at that armchair traveling extravaganza. Um, in this area here. So all of these kind of city centres have an arts gallery around it, for example. There's museums close by and those sorts of things. This one has a fountain in Calgary. I wonder, do we have kind of any fountains in this area? Not really, but potentially we can find something close by. Um, They have an ice skating rink, a bunch of areas here. So hopefully there'll potentially be some sort of um, water feature of some kind around here. Sure, we could find something. All right, so it would be probably fine that we're getting swept to the town hall, the city hall. So Adelaide's city hall is fairly close to the town square from memory. Let's see how far away we were. So that's the square there. Yeah, so the town hall was literally just kind of down the road. So, okay. So making that next stop just the town hall sounds like it would be fine. Um, and we can probably leave it as you finally manage to stop your advance on a tree um, by City Hall. Um, I mean, this is not City Hall, though. Uh, Interesting. Vancouver's an interesting one. Um, because the City Hall is not in downtown, right? It's over here. Um, I mean, there are kind of, Home Depot and other stores throughout there, Canadian Tire, all of that sort of thing in and around this area. Good community garden. Sure, there would be plaques or statues there, maybe. Interesting. Okay, we'll have to have a little bit of a think around Vancouver. Let's, for the moment, let's just say City Hall as our location, and then the other one is just a trash can. Um, So this one goes to this one and then this one. So this guy is okay, so this guy is our trash can. And this one is our city hall. All right. So now we go to our other choice, which is the security receptionist kind of one, right? Um, so how do we... Only to see them picking up a ringing phone. It's weird. It's weird that it's done that. So that helps us kind of typos there. Jump. And then obviously Prime Minister would be changed for President if you were in the States or whichever ever other head of, government, depending on what city or country you're in. I wonder if Canadians shorten Prime Minister to PM. I think so. Uh, Again, mate is very Australian, so maybe buddy. Quite North American, that term. Statues in the square. One of them hides the weapons. This exact scenario. So we are hoping that there are statues nearby, right? That's what we are looking for. I suppose depending on how the cities play out, we might attempt to kind of put this in maybe several Canadian cities and see how close we can kind of get to city halls. And so maybe it's just that um, you have um, rather than it being the city square or the city town hall square, you have them hovering over a square, right? So it could kind of be any square in the city. Um, uh, so that might kind of help put you in the area. There might be more street art, statues, those kind of things. But it might also give you the ability to put it over a park or wherever that might be. Um, um, so we'll have to see maybe after we kind of have a look at, like 10 different cities in Canada, like how specific can we be in our language? How likely is it that these kind of things all exist in a city um, and how they're placed, right? So um, it's generally more than multiple statues in those kind of areas. Okay. Apparently, we've changed this one to King and Country. Uh, in front of, so the Westpac is a bank. So there's lots of banks around, so we can put in front of the maybe a nearby restaurant would probably be better. Oh, actually, this one might go to the rubbish bin. Oh, okay. So we get to say it goes past a nearby restaurant. Um, and rather than crossing the road, is almost hidden amongst a pack of suicidal citizens. Going to check out the fuss. Heads down the street. Reese after catch it outside the rubbish bin, so we don't need to. We're going to call that an trash can on the side of the road. Or do you answer? Look, I'm not sure. Um, see, even if even as Frederick takes over Denmark, there is still Queen Mary, so that still works, Queen of Denmark. So that's all good. Um, um, the suicidal citizens. Go to the spectacle. You manage. Finally managed to stop your advance on a tree outside a delicious smelling restaurant. Can't just say Dumpling King. Um, doors of your building. And in that way, this will be the only reference to a restaurant. Um, so this reference to you wonder if the bank manager would know how to stop an alien invasion in this particular bank, Westpac in Australia, they always put on their windows the name of the bank manager and their number of that like branch as kind of like a we're community facing and customer facing and all of that kind of thing, um, and 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 uh, and so that's kind of like a very local reference. So we may have to put that one out because definitely all banks do not do that. Hello, Yes Books. Nice to see you today. The writing is going okay. It's really revising, editing, as it were. Um, so thank you so much for asking. Um, I was trying to kind of explain as I was writing, but obviously, I'm not so multi-talented that I can write and speak at once. So writing and a little bit of explaining. Hopefully that was entertaining enough. But thanks, Yes Books, for dropping in. I appreciate you. It is 5 o'clock though here on Monday, so I am going to close up for the evening. Thank you for those of you who dropped in and kind of joined me in this rewriting of making an interactive story that we could probably place in your city, hopefully. And an incredibly weird and silly alien story that we could probably place in your city, depending on whether or not that is your jam. Um, so thank you so much for joining me. For those of you who have either checked in live or checking in on the video later on, as always, we do upload these Creator Labs to YouTube every week. We are the channel Story City on YouTube, and every Thursday or Friday during each week, we do a real life read of a choose your own adventure where we armchair travel around a city somewhere in the world and live argue our way through an adventure. Um, to see where we end up and in what ridiculous scenarios. This week it'll be Thursday night here in North America, or Friday morning, early afternoon in Australia, if you're in the Australasian region. We are going to be doing a story called Who is the Firm by the very talented Michael Hand. I'm going to be joined by my co-host Brett Ludwig. So that's going to be 7 p.m. Thursday this week. If you want to join us for a live choose your own adventure, a bit of armchair travel, please do. Otherwise, we're here every Monday at 4 p.m. if you want to brainstorm a story or adventure. Doesn't have to be interactive. Well, honestly, brainstorm any story. We just enjoy it. We enjoy creating with other people. So please feel free. If you are a creator and you're interested in playing around with Story City, it's free. So please feel free to go to storycity.app, set up an account, become a creator, and you can start playing around with making and